In the past few days, there have been reports that security operatives arrested 30 women at a certain place in the FCT, regarded as, some say, a club or a strip club. Afterwards, just about a week later, another group of women, 70 in number, were arrested on varying charges, which we will be finding out what those are. Quite recently, just a few hours ago, we heard that these women, a lot of them, out of that 70, have pleaded guilty to prostitution and been sentenced to either 1 month in prison or an option of 3,000 naira fine. Well, many of them paid 3,000 naira fine and left. However, the sequence of events has led people to ask if there is a sort of targeting of women in the FCT by the security operatives. Are these women really prostitutes? Did they really break a law? Is there a gender-based issue here? And what happened to those women while they were incarcerated or while they were in detention? Those questions have come up. These are the things we are discussing right here on Root Cause. My name is Gloria Oji Emodi. And to have this conversation right here in the studio, we have Enola. She is with the Dorothy Foundation, and she has worked closely with most of these women who have been charged, and most of them acquitted. Welcome, Dami.
Thank you.
Of course, our legal counsel right here in the studio, in the person of Kola Alakwini. Welcome. You are our legal counsel today.
Thank you.
Okay, so Enola, give us a brief insight on what basically happens to us, starting from the arrest of about 30 women at the Caramello nightclub lead, and then to the 70 women who were arrested. What's going on? Why are these women being rounded up in the FCT?
Basically, I think I'd just like to start with this. I think there's a war against women, particularly in this part of the country, in the FCT. That was yesterday, Monday. I was in a court sitting where we had women. Some of them didn't even understand why they were there. Some of them just pleaded guilty to an offense that they didn't know about. They were charged for loitering and public nuisance, and they had to plead guilty and pay a fine of 3,000 naira. And so all of them just, they were even encouraged to just pay a fine. Just say you're guilty. They were coached to say that. And then some people didn't even understand English. They didn't know why they were there. They didn't know what they were charged for. They just said yes to the worship, and then they paid the fine. Now, taking it further, for the Caramello event, we had women who were, arrested because they were strippers at the club. And meanwhile, the media reported it as an abuse of the land. That was why they were being charged. But when there's an issue with abuse of the land, why not charge the owner of the property? Why not charge those in charge of management? What has women, musicians, bouncers, they were also bundled up and they were arrested. So that's why it's just making it clearer and clearer that actually there is a war against women.
Okay, what was reported was that these women pleaded guilty to prostitution. Is that what they were being charged for?
No, they were charged for public nuisance and loitering under the AEPB. they were not charged for prostitution. They were charged for
Public nuisance.
yes. So that's like a big umbrella.
And
That
so,
means
okay, caller, please come in here. Public nuisance and loitering. So under
sorry, and I think I remember clearly hearing something about soliciting for sex.
okay,
That's another
soliciting
thing.
for sex
Yes,
as
I
well.
remember hearing the
So
word.
public nuisance, loitering, and soliciting for sex.
In that sense, soliciting for sex. Why is it just the women? You understand? Men too are involved in this.
Okay, so caller, come into this.
Okay, I would start from the Caramello incident. And if you cast your mind back, I think the building where Caramello is situated is being used as a gentleman's club. That's a more acceptable word.
Instead of a strippers club. Okay.
It's a gentleman's club, and the building, according to the Abuja Environmental Protection Board, I think the building was licensed to be an hospital facility or a clinic. You touched on a very important topic there, saying somewhere charged for soliciting for sex, and it should be, you know, both the male and female which should be charged, and that's true. Soliciting for sex has to be proved, and it's usually done by law enforcement in a sting operation, because you'll find a policeman or a policewoman pretending to be, you know, offering the services, sexual favors, and then to be able to ensnare the person. If you've not been able to do that,
Then how do you prove that soliciting for sex occurred? Because according to the reports that we have, a group of police officers met a few women in certain areas, picked them up on suspicion of loitering and all of that, and soliciting for sex.
In transit, you know, we see it all happening in Lagos and in Abuja. In recent times, there's been an increase in Abuja.
Is stripping against the law in Nigeria?
If it was against the law, why is it being done in Lagos State? So that answers your question. I think what the government has done in recent times is to put an enabling environment in place for people to... There's no crime in an adult who wants to take off their clothes in a private
environment
establishment, and there's no crime if another adult enjoys such a freak show. It's entertainment. Adult entertainment is big business in the US and the UK, in Amsterdam. These are ways which progressive countries make a lot of money. But in Nigeria, we're overtly religious and sensitive, and we just make all things convoluted.
All right. Now, moving on in this conversation, because coming back to you, Damilola, I've heard reports that some of these women who were arrested, part of this 70 women, some of them were even reporting to have been sexually molested by the officers who arrested them. How true is this? Were you able to talk to some of these women?
Yes, I spoke with a couple of women, and the striking one for me that I spoke with personally told me what she experienced while in custody. So some of them were assaulted. You have a case where it's like, okay, so now you have been apprehended, this is the easy way out, pay 5,000. If you can't pay 5,000, then you can pay with sex, we'll let you out. So those who had 5,000 could pay on, right on. Then those who didn't have 5,000, they offered and they accepted, to have sex with them. So they, funny enough, they slept with them, sexual assault. And I heard of cases whereby the policeman or whoever it is was in charge of them was using pure water sachet, as condoms while they sexually assaulted these women. And the person I spoke with personally told me she couldn't afford it. She had been on a period since, she had been on a period throughout that time. So she said she just spent the money on herself. And then as soon as she pleaded guilty, she was out. So it's like pay in cash or you pay in kind.
This is a human rights violation, isn't it?
It's a very gross one, and it's a very serious issue which the FCT Police Command and the IJ, Inspector General of Police, should respond very swiftly. This is a very serious allegation, and if it is proved, these policemen
But you see,
they should be shown the way after the case first.
But you see, that is what the problem is, proving that these things happened. Because even the persons who this happened to may refuse to have a conversation that is more open. She confided in you, but if you were to ask her to now relay this story over and over and over again, which is what happens to rape victims, it becomes difficult and they want to move on.
There is a difficulty in proving, obviously.
Yes.
Because in this case, the woman in question was actually in custody. Okay, she was in custody of these policemen who abused their offices, allegedly abused, their office to perpetrate this crime. Under normal circumstances, when you want to prove rape, there are some technical steps which you have to follow. And one of them would be being examined by a medical doctor or having a police report. So how do you actually institute all that where the gatekeeper is the one who has left the gate open?
And that's a problem, because this will definitely continue if it doesn't. And I don't think this is the first time.
However,
okay,
if you cannot prove, there's nothing that stops the Abuja Police Command or the IG from instituting a high-level inquiry into what has happened.
Why do you think this is going on? Why all of a sudden? Well, I don't think it's all of a sudden. This has been happening, but there seemed to be an increased move or intensity. The intensity has increased in the past few weeks. Why is this going on now? Why do you have any idea
Very
why?
simple. They've not been under the spotlight, which they are right now. Because if they've been under the spotlight, as you're doing now, and the use of new technologies and social media have been focused more on them, there would have been an overhaul of the total system and how people are arrested and processed and charged to court. Number two, it could be that they are trying to meet up the targets. You must also
Financial target.
It could be financial. You must recognize that a government has just been re-elected. Some people will be let go. Some appointments will be made. You have to look at things in a broader perspective. And this is Nigeria, and we know how things work in our country. There's a second coming of President Muhammadu Buhari. You know that MDs are going to be reshuffled, ministers change. So you've got to be able to,
say, I've done this, I've done that, so you should retain me. Beyond just the fact that the IGP has to look into this, what more? I mean, round this up for us. What can we do from the human rights angle?
It's very important to marshal the need for the protection of women's rights. Women are as equal as men, and there's need to keep on talking.
One of the greatest weapons of this decade is the mobile phone. The use of new technologies. People need to be documenting these atrocities more, get it out there, let the public talk about it. In fact, the Nigerian government, there's nothing that the Nigerian government official fears more than mobile media. And especially everyone's embarrassed when it goes international. So tag CNN, tag BBC, tag this, and let's have this discussion.
A big thank you to you, Damilola Popola, for talking to us on this and for sharing your insight into it, because there's so many aspects of the story that many haven't heard, especially this very in-depth and very up-close account. Thank you. Kola Latni, thanks for giving us your perspective on this as well. Please go to the comment section of this video and give us your thoughts, and in whichever way that you can help in this situation, shed more light on it, please go ahead and do that. My name is Gloria Oji Emodi, and you're watching Rootstv Nigeria.